Hi there. I'm glad to welcome you to my channel, World of Stories. I have a lot of interesting life stories that I want to share with you. Enjoy listening.
All modern hospitals have one common feature: life there unfolds at a special pace. Despite the sterility of the interiors, the environment changes constantly, 24 hours a day. From an outsider's perspective, this intense movement may seem akin to a Brownian motion, but upon closer inspection, even someone distant from the medical field would understand the precision of the hospital life algorithm. David Gilbert, upon entering his familiar clinic, felt right at home. He had dedicated over 20 years to his beloved profession and knew perfectly well how this complex mechanism called a multidisciplinary clinic operated. He took great pride in being one of the cogs in this system. Dr. Gilbert also enjoyed philosophizing about his purpose in this restless world. Among his colleagues, he often repeated, "Our mission is to welcome new life, and it's magnificent." When you hold a little human being in your hands, you feel like, if not a god, then at least their special representative on earth. It's an incomparable feeling. That morning, David was also pondering on this topic because a serious operation to save another young life awaited him. He had already made his way to the operating theater when the bulky figure of senior nurse Barbara unexpectedly appeared in his path. "David, hold on for a moment. The operation will have to be postponed. The chief needs you." Such informal address from someone junior in rank could be interpreted as a breach of medical ethics, but in the Lifeline clinic, such exceptions were allowed in extraordinary cases. Moreover, it was permissible for Barbara, the most senior employee of the department. She considered everyone her own children and interacted with the entire staff in such a manner. Interestingly enough, the doctors and nurses saw a second mother in this amiable woman. Many would confide in her, and some would even cry on her shoulder. And Barbara always found the right words for everyone. Noticing that the doctor was lost in thought, Barbara repeated her address, but this time louder. "Well, what are you standing there for? Hurry to the chief's office. He has something urgent for you." I told him, "We have a woman on the operating table, a critical situation, and he demands Gilbert to come to him." "Don't worry, I've already informed Helen." This news slightly reassured the doctor. "She hasn't left yet?" "Thank you, Barbara. You're our savior in a pinch."
Yeah,
Except instead of a fairy costume, I'm wearing a sterile gown that scares away not only bacteria but also cute elves. The woman made an expressive gesture with her hand and continued on her usual route. David hurried to the elevator. The chief's office was one floor above. There was a small queue in the waiting area, and the secretary looked at the newcomer with undisguised displeasure. She immediately pressed the call button. "Mr. James, Gilbert has arrived." "All right, I got it." Her sour expression instantly transformed into a dutiful smile. "The chief is waiting for you, please go in." David had a moment to think that this sweet girl should work in the theater rather than a medical facility. Only good actors could change their expression so quickly. Mr. James was speaking to someone on the phone. He nodded to the visitor to take a seat and continued his conversation. "Don't worry, Kevin, everything will be of the highest quality. But even a good doctor cannot anticipate all the pitfalls. I'm not making excuses." "Yes, exactly, I understand." David realized that the managers were talking to the regional health authorities. The chief hung up the phone and wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. "You, regular staff members, have no idea how much effort it takes for me to defend you. But the most interesting part is that you don't even appreciate it, considering me a hardened bureaucrat." For a moment, David felt sorry for this relatively decent person with whom he had not only professional but also family ties. After all, Mr. James was his spouse's father, meaning he was part of the closest circle of relatives. However, it was not appropriate to bring up such matters at work. So the doctor limited himself to a formal tone and expression of sympathy. "Mr. James, we appreciate and respect you, but I would like to know why you urgently called for me." "I have a patient in the operating room." The chief frowned. "I understand your concern, but I ordered Ms. Helen replace you. She will handle it." "I have no doubt that Helen will handle it, but the person has been on duty for 24 hours. It's nothing serious. It's not the first time she's had to work consecutive shifts. That's how it is in our profession. Don't get worked up. David, your help is needed. I have no one else to assign because ain't nobody got a silver tongue like yours. I don't understand. Please explain more detailed. The chief waved his hand dismissively. You see, I also face pressure from above, and now they called from the regional administration, demanding an interview for television. And you know the kind of relationship I have with these media sharks. So, Mr. James, you're canceling the surgery for the sake of an interview? First of all, no one is canceling anything, and secondly, sometimes you have to sacrifice something for the sake of our institution's image. So, it's all for the sake of PR? Well, what did you think? Market conditions require it. Without this, as you say, PR will be left in the dust. Do you think I enjoy this? I'm a doctor, and I shouldn't be dealing with this nonsense. Mr. James was genuinely worked up. It was evident that he was deeply troubled as well. David once again felt a surge of pity for this not-so-young man. Fine, I'll give this damn interview. When will the correspondent be here? The chief became pleased. He's already here. Waiting for you in your office. And this young lady is quite attractive. Just make sure you don't let your guard down. David stared at his boss in disbelief. Are you saying that there's an outsider in my department right now? I know it's a violation of protocol, but the press representative pleaded and begged to be allowed to immerse herself in the working atmosphere of the maternity ward. But we can make an exception, right? No, Mr. James, we can't. I will answer the questions, but she won't cross the sterile barrier. I'm not going to compromise the protocol just because someone wants it. The last thing we need is an unfamiliar infection. In this matter, I have no right to give orders. You're the head, it's up to you to decide. David felt his nerves tightening like springs. He already imagined himself putting this unfamiliar journalist in her place. Filled with anger, the doctor's fists involuntarily clenched, so he had to take a moment to catch his breath before entering his office. It turned out that a whole group of television personnel awaited him. The cameraman casually checked the equipment, while a slender girl in a ridiculous blouse with oversized flowers scribbled something in her notepad. Another older woman with a neat briefcase settled on the couch. Upon seeing this company, David barely restrained himself from uttering the harshest words. He called the duty nurse. Why aren't they wearing gowns? What kind of audacity is this? The girl with the notepad spoke up for the nurse. Don't scold the nurse, it's not her fault. We decline to wear gowns. I have to be on camera all the time, and the cameraman finds it inconvenient to work in a gown. The cup of patience overflowed, and the doctor pounced on the uninvited guests. Who are you to give orders here? Do you even understand that this is a maternity ward? It has special regulations, and anything foreign poses a danger to the lives of mothers and babies. The girl barely reached the doctor's shoulder. She clearly didn't expect such an outburst of anger from him and stuttered out of fright. But I didn't know it was that serious. We just wanted to do a real-time shoot. Don't even think about it. And didn't they teach you at your company that you should study the specifics of a location before showing up? The girl nervously fidgeted with the edge of her blouse with her slender fingers, and her voice trembled with anxiety. Yes, they warned me. But I didn't think it was that serious. I urgently need to gather material. Miracles, indeed. You see, she urgently needs to. Young lady, this is an institution with specific regulations. While David was enlightening the inexperienced journalist, the nurse brought gowns for the entire creative team. The woman with the briefcase and the cameraman quickly put on the white attire, and the girl followed suit. But her hands trembled with confusion, and she couldn't manage to get her arms through the sleeves of the protective clothing. The doctor felt awkward about his not-so-friendly attitude toward the television crew. He decided to help the girl, who was on the verge of tears. She gratefully accepted his assistance. Thank you, David. You see, I was entrusted with a serious report for the first time. I wanted everything to turn out at the highest level. I understand you perfectly. I was once young and inexperienced too. Don't take offense, but I want to give you some valuable advice. What's your name? The girl hesitated and replied, Jennifer. Nice to meet you, Jennifer. So, my advice for the future is to clarify everything down to the details even before starting work. I don't know who you arranged things with, but because of your unexpected visit, I had to transfer my patient to another doctor, and it looks like I'll have to change my plans for the entire day. That's how an unpleasant situation arises. The journalist, Jennifer, pleaded apologetically, almost childishly. I'm sorry, truly sorry. I honestly didn't know it was that serious. David noticed that the other members of the group remained silent during the conversation. His gaze didn't miss the smug expression on the woman's face, the one with the briefcase, while the cameraman continued to stare out the window with an indifferent look. The doctor mentally concluded, wow. It seems that intrigues prevail even in the creative sphere. These two cunning characters clearly knew what was going on and deliberately set the girl up for a fall. However, he kept his thoughts to himself and casually uttered the common phrase, o tempora, o mores, which means, oh, the times, oh, the customs in Latin, the ancient language still used in medicine. So, let's get down to business, he said. The girl smiled with joy, showing signs of activity, but only the woman with the briefcase remained in the same position. Jennifer, Jessica addressed her, let's get to work. Fix my face a bit, as I've been a bit nervous, and the doctor's forehead and cheeks are also shiny. Don't rush me, young lady. I see everything perfectly well. David was struck by the voice of this woman. He had the urge to ask if she voiced the character of the old witch in the studio, but he restrained himself just in time. Jessica, as she introduced herself, opened her box of tools and got to work skillfully with various brushes and makeup brushes. Then the cameraman found a convenient spot for filming, and Jennifer asked the standard questions. David was surprised to acknowledge that Jennifer was working very professionally. She never glanced at her notebook and asked additional questions along the way. The journalist's competent actions impressed the doctor, but there was something special about this girl that made his heart skip a beat. Jennifer, for understandable reasons, I cannot take you into the delivery room, but we can visit the happy mothers together. I'll just inform the nurses. By the way, it's almost feeding time and it's strictly scheduled, so you can capture some very touching scenes. Thank you, that's fantastic. The girl jumped in excitement in her place. Jessica shot her a disapproving look. David was sure that she would definitely report the girl, but he refrained from expressing this rebellious thought aloud. The interview took almost 2 hours. As he bid farewell to the guests, David saw Helen leaving the operating room with a tired gait. She waved at him friendly. Everything is fine. The doctor couldn't resist and reproachfully turned to the journalist. While we were talking, my colleague saved 2 lives. These are the heroes of our time, they are the ones that should be covered in the report. A minute later, he regretted what he had said. Jennifer pulled out her notepad and quickly scribbled something in it. Jessica watched her with undisguised dislike. The cameraman and the makeup artist hurried into the elevator cabin, while Jennifer lingered. David. I wanted to ask you something, not for the interview, just personally. Ask away, I'd be happy to answer your question if it's not about my personal life. It's somewhat related. Tell me, did you always want to become a doctor, or did you dream of another profession? No, this path was predetermined by fate itself. My mother dedicated almost 40 years to medicine, and I simply couldn't choose another path. Any other questions? Yes. Where did you start your medical practice? Usually, after graduating from medical school, everyone is sent somewhere far away. I also faced the same fate. I had to work for a full 2 years in a fascinating little town with a name, Weirton. The girl named Jennifer jumped with joy again. What a coincidence. I have relatives living in Weirton too. Are you also from there originally? David didn't like that the girl was interested in such details. He evasively replied, "No, I just completed my practice there." But that was a long time ago, over 20 years. Honestly, I've already forgotten what the town looks like. David felt a pang in his soul because he often recalled the early years of his professional career in that remote provincial town. This persistent journalist had stirred up something in his soul that he had carefully concealed all these years. David always considered himself a resident of the capital, although his childhood and youth flew by in the Washington region. However, there, all the kids considered themselves cool. The most challenging aspect David's family was the finances. In addition to David, there were two younger brothers in the family, and the sole breadwinner was their mother. Ms. Tiffany worked as a midwife, and to support her boys, she would disappear into the hospital for days on end. But even working two jobs couldn't cover all the necessary expenses. At first, their father sent child support, but then he disappeared without a trace. One day, David found a letter in a drawer with a strange stamp, and after reading it, he realized that his father was in prison. He never told anyone about this fact from his biography, and when he obtained his passport, he took his mother's maiden second name, Gilbert. However, Ms. Tiffany, despite her busy schedule, knew about her son's interests because she tried to stay informed about each of them. One day, she made a suggestion to the eldest. "David, we temporarily need a sanitary worker in the admissions department. You'll only have to work 2 night shifts a week. If you want, I can arrange for you to work on weekends. You can earn some pocket money for yourself." The young man immediately agreed. And after a month, he became so involved in his work that he decided to become a doctor. Although his first salary was small, he managed to buy a ticket to his favorite band's concert. There was also enough left for sweets for his younger brothers and flowers for his mother. Overwhelmed with emotions, Miss Tiffany even shed tears. "David, I didn't even notice how much you've grown. You're already earning on your own," she exclaimed. Elated by his first success, the young man assured his mother, "This is just the beginning, Mom. I will definitely become a doctor and earn good money." Ms. Tiffany cried even more. "Son, to get into medical school, you need connections or top grades on your certificate. And you have neither, and there's no one to help us. Our relatives are all poor." David hugged his mother. "Don't cry, and believe me, I will get in. A dynasty of Gilbert doctors must emerge." Ms. Tiffany laughed. "I'm not a doctor, I'm a midwife, which is a middle-tier position. And why are you talking about the Gilbert family? That was my surname before I got married. Mom, I've decided to take your surname. Look, here's the passport," David explained. His mother examined the document, speechless. "But, son, that's not how it's supposed to be. By law, children should bear their father's surname." "Mom, you're mistaken. A child has the right to choose any surname from their parents. I've decided to continue the Gilbert dynasty." "It sounds great. You said that my grandfather also had connections to medicine." "Yes, he was a paramedic, and my mother worked as a pharmacist. You see, it turns out to be a dynasty. And don't worry about my admission. I still have time to improve my grades." In general, David had no problems with his studies. He was considered one of the top students in his school, but he still fell short of getting an excellent certificate. In the remaining year, he worked hard and, as a result, received a document with only one of 4 grade. Teachers marveled at his determination. "What a smart kid, it's a shame about the 4 in mathematics." But David was not upset about it. He was confident that he would get accepted on his first attempt. Perhaps it was this confidence that gave him strength during the entrance exams. When he saw his surname on the list of students, his nervousness subsided, but the determined young man did not expect any other result. Throughout his years as a student, David also dedicated himself to his studies. He didn't go to discos or even date girls, although they actively tried to win his favor. When his friends teased him about it, he would respond cheerfully, "Once I finish the institute, I'll make up for lost time. I'll have a harem and dedicate a whole week to a carefree life." But for now, sacrifices must be made for a bright future, to make it easier for my mother. David worked as a hospital orderly to earn some extra money. His previous experience helped him a lot, and his older colleagues would always tease him, saying, "Hey, student, how did you manage to learn everything already? We can trust you with a scalpel now." While the praise was pleasant to him, he never let it go to his head. On his third year, he decided to choose gynecology as his specialization. His female classmates laughed at him, saying, "David, that's not a man's job." But David was convinced that gender doesn't determine the choice of specialization. After all, to the patients, a doctor is a helper and savior, regardless of whether they are male or female. David was confident that he would be assigned to one of the hospitals in the capital city through the placement process. However, he allowed for the possibility that in the worst-case scenario, he might have to work in a clinic for a couple of years. But the promising student never expected that he would be sent to an unfamiliar city called Weirton. When he learned about his unfortunate fate, he nearly burst into tears. What surprised him the most was that he ended up being among the outcasts, while other classmates who skipped lectures and performed worse than him in the exams were luckier. His fellow students openly laughed at him, and Thomas Backer, whose father was in charge of a clinic, mocked him. "Well, Gilbert, not every ticket is a lucky one. Sometimes luck runs out, you know? You've been drying out your brain for so many years, and now you have to go to the backwaters. But don't despair, people live in the provinces too. They even have a club with dancing to accordion music and a bathhouse with a store. Let me know how you settle in, Gilbert." David couldn't stand that arrogant guy, and their encounters often escalated to the brink of a fight, with Thomas always playing the role of the provocateur. The classmates tried not to offend Thomas, fearing the high position of Backer's father. David also restrained himself for 6 long years, but after receiving his hard labor assignment, he forgot about conventions. "Backer, you're celebrating victory too early. It's still unknown where you'll end up in a year. You're as dumb as a log. You only made it through thanks to your daddy, but it's dangerous to let you near patients because your name is Dr. Death." Witnessing this verbal altercation, onlookers held their stomachs from laughter. Well done, Gilbert. He really tore Backer apart. What a clever nickname he came up with. Thanks to David, the nickname of Dr. Death firmly stuck to Thomas, so it can be said that David got his revenge on his enemy before parting ways. He considered it humiliating to serve the required 2 years in the province. For 2 days, David was in a daze and couldn't bring himself to tell his mother that he would have to go to Weirton. But it was impossible to hide anything from Miss Tiffany. "Son, why are you walking around so downcast? Has the distribution by cities already been given?" David lowered his head. "Yes, mother, it has." "And what?" "Nothing good. They sent me to the glorious city of Weirton." David expected anything: tears, righteous maternal anger, or words of sympathy. But Miss Tiffany's reaction completely surprised him. She shone with happiness. "That's great, my son. It's commonly believed that working in the provinces is demeaning, and they send the most mediocre graduates of medical universities there. But as life shows, it's in rural areas and small towns that it's best to start your practice. After all, a young specialist immediately finds themselves on the front lines. They have to take responsibility and make decisions themselves, and that's the most important thing for a doctor." Weirton welcomed the young doctor unfriendly. It was raining as if pouring from buckets, so there were puddles everywhere, resembling lakes more than anything. By the time David reached the local hospital, he was soaked to the bone, but his personal losses were insignificant compared to what awaited him ahead. The hospital building looked depressing, and even scary. The interior didn't leave pleasant impressions either. The linoleum was swollen, the iron beds had sagging mesh, and the furniture was broken. A frightened middle-aged woman reported to the elderly paramedic who volunteered to be his guide. "Mr. Sam, they left me on duty here. But where did everyone disappear to?" The woman's eyes widened suddenly. "Mr. Sam, why are you asking silly questions? People are out digging potatoes. But it's pouring rain." "That's just the weather now. It was fine in the morning. The woman looked at Mr. Sam as if she were seeing him for the first time. The man felt uneasy in front of the young specialist and tried to justify his colleague's actions. Don't think badly of us, David. We have a good and very friendly team. Yes, I noticed how friendly it is. Tell me, Mr. Sam, what if there's an emergency? God forbid, a hemorrhage or even a hypertensive crisis? What will your watchman do then? The paramedic blushed, then cleared his throat. We have a specific algorithm in place if something happens. Ms. Andrea calls the on-duty doctor. Wow, you even have a doctor. It's good that I won't be alone here. The paramedic proudly remarked, according to the staffing plan, we have 7 doctor positions, but only half of them are filled. Don't think we're some backward hospital. We're a modern institution, just underfunded. But that will change. Ms. Andrea decided to support her colleague. Don't worry, dear person. We have good people working here, and when needed, they'll step up. I always come to the rescue. And what's your role here? David thought she worked as a nurse and asked her a question for formality. But to his surprise, the woman proudly shook her curls and replied, I'm a junior assistant doctor. David felt his jaw slowly dropping. He looked at the embarrassed Mr. Sam. But you've got to be kidding. So, everyone went off to dig potatoes, and they left the orderly behind. Ms. Andrea took offense at the tone of the new doctor. Am I not a person? Maybe I know more than you do. I've been in situations like this before. I know how to apply a cast and give injections if needed. But what else can we do? How many doctors have come and gone in our hospital? Tell me, Mr. Sam. Well, yes, there were many young and capable ones, but none of them stayed long. Ms. Andrea decided to settle the argument. And you, I don't know what to call you, will probably disappear in a year or 2 as well. Fine. I'm going. I'll go clean up before it's time to serve dinner. The tour of the hospital ended with a visit to the cafeteria. Mr. Sam noticeably perked up and praised the cooks in every way possible. Our girls are such masters that they can cook soup with an axe, just like in a fairy tale. Valuable personnel. And you, David, remember that it's your duty to take a sample. The cafeteria was located in a remote corner of the hospital grounds. At first, David thought it was a garage or a warehouse, but when he realized that food was prepared in the low building with moss-covered walls, he couldn't hold back. Tell me, dear Mr. Sam, were war movies filmed in these surroundings by any chance? The hospital guide took offense. And what's wrong with it? We have a normal hospital here. And we should be grateful for that. In the neighboring district, their building has completely collapsed. Now they bring their patients and expectant mothers to us. Even so. I didn't think there could be anything worse than this pitiful sight. Mr. Sam felt even more offended. Do you know who works here? Real surgeons. Top-notch professionals. They've performed surgeries here that they wouldn't do in the Capitol Clinic. And if you don't like it here, you're free to leave. We're not holding anyone back. David realized that he had hurt the elderly paramedic who had spent his entire life working in this hospital. He apologized profusely to him, and then he took the keys to the staff apartment and headed towards the wooden building that Mr. Sam had pointed out. Weirton had more surprises in store for the young doctor. The wooden building turned out to be a family-style dormitory. The room where David was supposed to live also brought complete disappointment. The only thing that pleased him was the hot water and the bathroom. Before he could fully take in his surroundings, there was a knock on the door. Yes, come in. The young man expected to see anyone but a nice-looking girl. Hello, congratulations on moving in. I'm your neighbor, Samantha. The girl confidently extended her hand. David was momentarily taken aback. And I'm David. I just arrived today to serve at the local medical facility. I must admit, I still can't get over the shock. Nothing surprising. I was in the same state for a long time too, but then I got used to it. Thanks for providing accommodation, otherwise I would have had to wander around rental apartments. Are we, by any chance, colleagues? By chance, yes. I've only been working here for a couple of months. They sent me to this hole right after college. You won't believe it, but I cried for a whole week, even had some bad thoughts, Samantha laughed. Just kidding. In this lovely town, only dark thoughts come to mind. Of course, a person gets used to everything, but I don't plan to stay here for long. I'll fulfill my obligations and look for a better place. The unfortunate neighbors spent the entire evening together. Samantha fed the newly arrived doctor with delicious soup. Since the young people had just met, they decided to seal their acquaintance with a bottle of champagne. In the evening, Samantha suggested, maybe we should take a short walk before bed. I have duty in the morning, and I just can't get used to this new place, I sleep poorly. Being a gallant gentleman, David offered to accompany the girl. The weather was good, and only the huge puddles reminded them of the recent rain. The streets were quiet and deserted. Only a few couples walked arm in arm along the park paths. David felt comfortable in the company of this girl. Samantha, do you ever get the feeling that we've met before? A little bit. But scientists explain this phenomenon as people having the same psychological type. Samantha, you've ruthlessly shattered my fantasies just now. I had already plunged into romantic dreams, and you. I am a realist and even a pragmatist. Remember the famous saying about how one should live their life? To avoid pain? Well, yes, to avoid pain and the regret of wasting time in vain. That's why I have everything planned out for the next few years. I'll fulfill my obligations here, find a good job in the city, and maybe continue my education. And what about getting married? All girls dream of a wedding. Samantha laughed. That item is also on my list, but I definitely won't go for the first person I meet. I apologize for the personal question, but what kind of candidates will be considered? Only promising ones. It may sound blunt, but I don't need a simple guy who works at a machine or behind the wheel for a meager salary. I see. You dream, like many girls, of marrying someone wealthy. Nowadays, they call them oligarchs, right? No, I'm not aiming to find a walking wallet, but financial stability never hurts. And most importantly, I dream of meeting a successful person who has a good job, their own home, and a solid foundation. Won't you get bored then? Why would I? Following your example, Samantha, I'll refer to psychologists. They claim that when a person lives in complete abundance, they start to get terribly bored. I'm sure I won't get bored. They strolled almost until midnight. When they were returning to the dormitory, David noticed the silhouette of a man. Samantha said disapprovingly. Peter again. He's so annoying. David smirked. Your admirer? Something like that. He won't leave me alone. I don't know where to hide from him anymore. The guy noticed the approaching couple and immediately got agitated. Samantha, who's this jerk? Peter, watch your language. He's not a jerk, he's our new doctor from Washington. Oh, so you're fine with the Capitol's boyfriend, and you don't care about Peter. Samantha wanted to say something, but David cut her off. He was much stronger and taller than Peter and deftly lifted him off the ground. Listen, young man, if I hear one more rude word towards my neighbor and colleague, then. The guy broke free. Then what? Well, nothing special. I'll give you an enema with nails. Samantha burst into laughter, and Peter looked bewildered. How is that even possible, with nails? Are there such enemas? There are, they're just done for preventive purposes. Peter retreated from the scene of the confrontation but immediately returned. Listen, doctor. She's my girlfriend. If I see you near her again, watch out for yourself. And I don't give a damn about your medical tricks like enemas with nails. That evening remained memorable for David for the rest of his life. It also became significant for Samantha. After her shift, she hurried home and in the evenings, she awaited her neighbor's return from work. Poor Peter suffered from unrequited love alone on a bench near the dormitory. David felt sorry for the guy, and one day he said, "Samantha, are you sure that everything in your life will go according to a predetermined plan? Don't you think there will come a day when you'll regret turning down this guy? Anything is possible, but I don't see that person next to me. You're mistaken to think that way about him." At first, Peter seemed like an unlucky guy to me too, but it turns out he's a real hero. What are you talking about? It's about how he risked his life to save his comrade. There was an accident in their workshop, and a person was almost crushed by a slab. And Peter reacted. He got injured himself, but managed to save his friend from imminent death. The girl looked at David with surprise. "Where did you get this information?" "From our hospital, of course. They brought your Peter during my shift. You know that every doctor here is a jack of all trades. I had to act as a surgeon yesterday. Well, I treated Peter a bit. Long story short, I admitted him to the ward. Maybe you'd like to visit him and make the guy happy." The neighbors didn't cross paths for a long time because their work schedules didn't align. It was only after 3 weeks that David bumped into Samantha face to face in the kitchen. The girl was delighted by the encounter. "Listen, Gilbert, we live in the same apartment, but we haven't seen each other for weeks. For the sake of our friendship, would you let me join your department? I heard someone there is going on maternity leave." "Well, yes, but you see, Samantha, it all comes down to the lack of a full staff, so we have to combine roles. For example, I have learned almost all the related specialties in a few months. But can you replace a midwife?" "Oh, I guess I'm not ready for that yet. I can navigate the operating room with my eyes closed, but delivering babies is a huge responsibility. That's always the case. Just when you start trying to recruit new staff, it falls through. I'm also exploring other options to get out of here as soon as possible. As for me, I still don't know." "Samantha, have your plans changed, by any chance?" The girl became flustered, and a blush appeared on her face. "They have changed a little. Thanks to you, I won't make any wishes yet, but perhaps I'll invite you to a wedding soon." "Interesting. And who's the lucky guy? Could it be the rude Peter?" David looked at her cunningly but couldn't hold back and burst into laughter. Samantha looked so embarrassed. "You hit the nail on the head. But he's actually a good guy, and his parents are very nice. By the way, Peter's mother is a teacher, and he's such a rough guy. This imbalance, Samantha, is explained by your favorite psychologists. They believe that childhood complexes are to blame for everything. Anyway, I'm very happy for you. Just hurry up with the wedding because I'm leaving. One person promised to pull me out of this swamp called Weirton, and you know that's what I want more than anything in the world." David wasn't lying to his neighbor. The prospect of returning to the capital city did exist. After working for several months without a break, the young doctor decided to visit his mother when he accumulated a lot of time off. On the train, he coincidentally bumped into Thomas Backer. Thomas was delighted by the unexpected encounter. "Gilbert, what brings you here?" "Honestly, I'm really glad to see you, and I admit that I treated you unfairly. You know, a person can become wiser in just a year. But tell me, how are things in your..." "Thomas, in Weirton. You can't even imagine what a hole it is. Enduring complete devastation is still manageable, but when you don't even have the basic necessities for work, you feel like crying your eyes out. I have the feeling that no one there has even heard of modern medicine."
Yeah.
That's the situation everywhere. Of course, it's a bit easier in the capital, but you still have to fight for everything. Even simple bandages. My dad comes home from work every day completely frustrated. He's been promoted to the chief position now. Well, for such a position, it's worth enduring. How about your sister? David even dated Gloria Backer for a while in their youth, but then the girl found a wealthier suitor for herself. Thomas scratched his head. Gloria, as usual, is waiting for her prince. But doesn't she have a fiancé? It seemed like she even had someone who could pass for a prince. There was, but he left for the States. My sister suffered for a long time because he didn't take her with him. Now she's back to searching. By the way, you could try to rekindle your relationship with her. Sorry, Thomas, but it's not worth stepping into the same river twice. I think you'll agree with me on this matter. I completely agree with you. And my sister isn't exactly a prize. Personally, I would run about 10 kilometers without looking back if I had to live under the same roof with someone like Gloria. They chatted a bit more, reminiscing about funny moments from their student life. As they said
Goodbye.
Thomas handed him a laminated square. This is my business card. Now all respectable guys have one. It has all the contact information. I hope you managed to get a mobile phone? No, I've only seen them in pictures. Besides, I can't afford such an expensive thing on my salary. Don't underestimate yourself. They say doctors are paid well in rural areas. That's just talk, in reality, it's meager pennies. The doctor's salary is somewhat decent, but as for nurses and orderlies. My neighbor, an operating room nurse, can work with her eyes closed but is afraid to receive her salary. Thomas nudged David. Is she an attractive neighbor? Not bad, but she's getting married soon. Too bad, otherwise, I would have come to visit you. Samantha fluttered around the apartment like a butterfly. David watched her preparations with a smile. On one hand, he was happy for his neighbor and Peter, but the thought of Samantha getting married made him feel melancholic. So he carefully avoided being alone with her. For a while, he succeeded in doing so. But one evening, Samantha knocked on the door of his room herself. David, don't you think we need to have a serious talk? The young man remained silent. He was afraid and awaited this conversation. He was afraid because he couldn't understand his own feelings. Why are you silent? You understand that sometimes one word, one gesture, can decide everything. I don't want to make a fatal mistake. I don't want that either. Unexpectedly, Samantha burst into tears. She spoke loudly and desperately. But why? Why do you silently endure all of this? Why do you allow me to be with this Peter? He's kind and very good. But I don't love him, do you understand? Every night, I dream of you. You don't even realize how many times I've stood outside your door, holding my breath, but I was afraid that you would reject me. The flow of reproaches was interrupted by a long kiss. The lovers lost track of time. They forgot about everything in the world and fell asleep tightly embraced, only waking up towards morning. Samantha was the first to jump up. It seems like I overslept. David quickly followed suit. I have a duty in hospital too. Samantha admired his muscular torso. Oh, what's this? It's a birthmark, all us guys have it. My grandpa had a big one, my younger brothers have the same mark too. Samantha's eyes lit up again. Let's call the hospital and tell them we've contracted the plague and need quarantine. No, I don't want the plague. Let's come up with something simpler. Alright, then we have options, chickenpox, dysentery, or rubella. Samantha. Stop scaring me with scary infections, or I'll run away from you. It won't work. I'll find you by your birthmark, dig you up from underground. In their excitement, the couple completely forgot about Peter. Only at the doorstep of the apartment did Samantha remember her fiancé and firmly said, there will be no wedding. David, am I right? The man was flustered. I don't know yet. It all happened so spontaneously. Maybe I didn't express myself clearly. There will be a wedding, but not with Peter. We are together now, forever, right? To avoid answering the question, David kissed his beloved. That night, as he returned from his duty, someone pounced on him from behind near the entrance and knocked him to the ground. From the breath and blows raining down on him from all sides, the doctor understood that he was being attacked by at least 3 people. Before losing consciousness, he heard Samantha's desperate scream. Monsters, what are you doing? Leave him alone. After that, David sank into darkness, where it was very dark, and his battered body was engulfed in pain. The first thing David saw when he woke up was Samantha's tearful face. "David, my love, forgive me. It's all my fault." Then the face of the local police officer appeared. Well, doctor, quite a beating you got. Can you speak? Who attacked you? We'll write a report." David tried to speak, but the pain immediately pierced him. He whispered softly. "No need for any reports. I hurt myself." The police officer was outraged. "Doctor, do you realize that by refusing, you're encouraging criminals? I won't write or sign anything. It was all an accident." The police officer left empty-handed, and Samantha didn't leave the doctor's bedside for several days. She spoon-fed him, tried to support him in every way possible, but most importantly, the man learned from her that the wedding had been cancelled. "We're together now, David, let's get married?" But the doctor remained silent. The girl thought that it was just difficult for him to speak. She asked him this question several times, but he always responded evasively. "Of course, Samantha, we'll get married, but we need to wait a little. I'm not fully recovered yet. Besides, why do you need such a useless husband? I might lose consciousness at the most critical moment." Samantha understood the jokes and waited for her beloved to take an important step, but days passed, and nothing changed. David knew very well that it couldn't go on like this for much longer. One day, while Samantha was at work, he found Thomas's business card and called his home phone. Thomas answered right away. "Good thing you called, Gilbert. As they say, the prey runs into the hunter's arms, and I was just about to put out a search for you. There's a hot vacancy at my father's clinic." "Listen, thanks. I didn't expect it. But how? I need to settle things, pass on my responsibilities. Gilbert, if you don't show up tomorrow, there will be another candidate. There are many people interested in this position. Start as a resident for now, and eventually, you'll become the head of the department. So, don't delay." David rushed to the hospital. He wrote a resignation letter, explaining the urgency as his mother's illness. He felt guilty about lying, but there was no other way. Returning to his bachelor's den, he hurriedly packed his belongings, hoping to escape before Samantha's return. However, she came back from work earlier than expected. Seeing the packed suitcases, the girl understood everything. "David, how could you? And me? What did you think would happen to me? Everyone will point fingers at me now." Samantha didn't cry, but her voice carried so much despair and sorrow that the man felt uneasy. He tried to embrace her, and she buried her face in his shoulder. "You promised to marry me, and now you're running away." He gently stroked her back, like a child. "Samantha, you have to understand, such an opportunity comes once in a lifetime. I can't take you with me right now. I don't know anyone in the capital, I'll have to look for an apartment, and then. David, what about after that? Am I not worthy of you?" He lowered his gaze. Silence hung in the room for a few minutes. Then the young doctor resolutely started packing his suitcases. "I'm sorry, I'm in a hurry." He rushed downstairs and made his way to the train station. It was only in the train carriage that he finally caught his breath. His face burned like fire, and his heart was torn by guilt. The train was taking him to a new life, and the wheels clacked all the way, whispering, "You scoundrel, you scoundrel." It took him several years to realize that day had become the blackest day of his shame. But David constantly pushed away intrusive thoughts of returning and finding Samantha. He tried to forget the girl who believed in him, but fate had cruelly avenged his actions. On the television, some series played again, and David sat motionless, staring at the screen. "David, are you okay?" His wife snapped her fingers in front of his face. He roughly pushed her hand away. "What a ridiculous habit. I'm not a rabbit to have my reflexes tested on. Why are you getting so worked up over nothing?" "Because I want to relax, and you're tormenting me with your endless questions." David. But it's obvious, I'm not a stranger, I'm your lawful wife. The woman froze for a moment. Listen, Gilbert. Maybe you have someone else, and I missed that moment? David stood up and walked past his wife, but she followed him. I'm waiting for an answer. Gloria, you only have one thing on your mind. I remember that you weren't interested in me at all before. Why the sudden change? You know, Gilbert, life has become boring. Our daughter has grown up, they stole my dog, so you're the only one left. At that moment, the man was pouring tea. You're doing great. So it turns out that I ranked lower on your priority list than your dog. Gloria, with a challenge in her voice, remarked. And do you aspire to something greater? The woman poured herself some tea and settled on a soft poof. Above all, Gilbert, what surprises me is not your stubbornness, but how quickly people become ungrateful. Do I owe you something? Of course. My father and brother played a role in your fate. If it weren't for them, you would still be languishing in your Weirton and would have married some fat collective farm woman. Gloria, just so you know, collective farms have long been abolished. Weirton has probably changed too. And about my marriage. You yourself made the decision, no one dragged you to the registry office. So, you're talking now. You're getting defensive. But you used to be such a modest young man when you wanted a more lucrative position. Stop it. You have nothing to do with this at all. It was Mr. James who helped me, and in gratitude, I married you. Otherwise, I would have just sat there, engrossed in old affairs. To avoid further escalating the already heated atmosphere, David put on his coat and closed the doors of the country mansion behind him. Gloria didn't like the hustle and bustle of the city and preferred to spend summer and autumn in the elite village. Although David also enjoyed the quiet life, he had to spend several hours commuting to and from work every day. After the argument with his wife, he decided to take a walk as well. Driven by some inner voice, he headed to train station. In the train schedule, he found a familiar name and asked at the information desk. How can I get to Weirton? There are direct trains. The girl looked at him strangely, as if he were asking about not a provincial American town but some island in the Pacific Ocean. Our schedule hasn't changed for many years, so all the information there is accurate. The man realized that the attendant's displeasure was due to him bothering her. He didn't want to go back home, so he wandered the city until almost midnight. Gloria didn't even call. His anger towards his wife hadn't subsided, and he swore loudly. Well, sit there, you foolish, uncultured woman. Enjoy your solitude for the night. He spent the night in a hotel, where he got a good night's sleep. In the morning, forgetting about the argument with his wife, he headed to the clinic. Before he could even enter the department, senior nurse Barbara's voice echoed through the speakers. David, the boss is looking for you. All right, I'm coming. Hopefully, I won't have to deal with TV people this time. I don't know, but Mr. James is definitely in a bad mood today. Thanks, our good fairy, for the warning. The boss thundered and roared. David, what's going on? Where have you been wandering at night? Why the gray hairs and the devil knocking on your ribs? Come on, Mr. James, how can you say that? I just stayed overnight at a hotel to avoid provoking my dearest wife into a conflict. You should talk to her, not me. Don't tell me what to do, or you'll find yourself out on the street quickly. Don't scare me, Mr. James, I'm not easily intimidated. Besides, times have changed. I've been invited to other clinics before. So the world won't end if I'm not here. Look at how you're talking. Put the resignation letter on the table. David replied sarcastically. It will be done, boss. Within 5 minutes, he returned to the boss's office with the resignation letter, which the boss signed without even looking up from his desk. Get out of here, what's the name of that little town where I dragged you from? Weirton? Yes, T.S. Weirton. Well, then, off you go. No one is allowed to treat my daughter like that. David turned towards the door. He felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. After all these years living with Gloria, he knew deep down that he had never truly become a real member of the Backer family. And the matter was not that he was not accepted, but rather that he himself didn't particularly strive to assimilate. Ideally, he was expected to be silent, obedient, not contradict Gloria, and do everything that Gloria's father told him to do. But David didn't want to. He always had his own opinion, and both Gloria and her daddy didn't like that at all. They seemed to get along at work, but only because Mr. James had to admit that David was a good doctor. He had to admit it, but he never said it out loud. You know, Mr. James, I must thank you for parting ways while I'm still in my prime. That means I'll still have a job and a family. But it's high time for you to have a well-deserved rest. You won't have any grandchildren from Gloria because it's too late, and she won't even get married anymore because she's simply not needed by anyone. She wasn't needed back then either. I had to pay the price for my desire to change jobs. By the way, the price is very high. Mr. James jumped up from his chair. Get out. David snorted and left. He felt so good after expressing everything. He walked down the corridor, wanting to whistle. Of course, at that moment, he ran into Barbara. So what happened that you're smiling after meeting with the boss? He twirled the senior nurse around. The best thing that could have happened, Barbara. She looked at him in astonishment. Did they raise your salary? Did they promote you? David, don't keep me waiting, tell me. I got fired. David gave the surprised woman one final spin and continued on his way. She watched him go. Crazy, finding something to be happy about. Fired. So it seems that married life is over. She shook her head and hurried to the nurse's station. Such news doesn't come along every day. Ahead for David awaited a conversation with his wife. He knew perfectly well not to expect anything good from this conversation, but he was ready. What a disappointment it was for Gloria to endure his screams for only an hour or even less, considering that she had put up with them for so many years. Gloria expected a completely different turn of events. She was sure that her husband would come, beg for forgiveness, and persuade her to talk to her father. She had already prepared a multitude of phrases to sting her husband as much as possible, but when he returned home, she saw no trace of remorse. Gloria sat in the armchair and turned away demonstratively, but David walked past her and grabbed his large suitcase. For about 5 minutes, she simply watched him in astonishment, then approached him. What are you doing? I'm packing my things. Why? Well, I thought you would at least figure it out by now. I'm leaving, and I'm doing it with great pleasure. Gloria was flustered. Everything was not going according to plan. Not her plan, but losing face was not an option. Well, good riddance, go back to where we rescued you from. David turned to her. You know what? I'll do just that. Gloria was completely flustered. David. But he picked up his suitcase and headed for the exit. I'll file the documents myself. David didn't even expect that the train journey would have such a positive effect on his psyche. The compartment was decorated in a modern style, and he enjoyed looking out the window at the colorful summer landscapes. All the unpleasantness faded into the background. He was no longer concerned about his work at the clinic or his crazy wife. We should have lunch. He grabbed his jacket and opened the compartment door. At that moment, a young woman happened to be passing by. Judging by her figure, it was easy to guess that she was pregnant. With his experienced doctor's eye, he could tell that she would give birth soon. He had always been against pregnant women traveling in the last month, so now, seeing the negligent mother-to-be, he couldn't help but say loudly. Well, where is she rushing to, about to give birth any day now? What kind of mothers have become? The sun flooded the compartment of the express train, so the doctor didn't immediately recognize the woman's face. But she was the first to recognize him. Dr. Gilbert. What a coincidence. Can you believe it? I was actually planning to visit my own people, and here you are. David was a bit taken aback. Journalist Jennifer was nothing like the timid girl in the awkward sweater he had interviewed. I also need to visit someone. And I just want to take a break, I'm tired of work. I'm exhausted too. They keep sending me everywhere, demanding this and that. Jennifer this, Jennifer that. By the way, I was so fed up that I was overjoyed when I found out I was pregnant. Speaking of your condition, it wouldn't be wise for you to travel alone. Oh, doctor, it's not a plane, it's a train. Nothing will happen to me. Allow me a personal question, where is your spouse? Donald? He's at work. They didn't let him go. And you shouldn't have taken the risk. David thought to himself, childish, I swear. Out loud, he said. If my memory serves me right, Jennifer? Yes. Try to walk less. When is your due date? Oh, still a whole 2 weeks. The doctor didn't say anything to the girl, but he thought to himself, it would be good if the contractions start in a couple of days and not earlier. The man went to a restaurant where he had a delicious lunch. He was joined by a familiar doctor whom he had crossed paths with several times at the health department meetings. They had a glass of good wine and discussed the problems of modern medicine. When the conversation turned to the fact that David was currently unemployed, his companion was actually pleased. Colleague, you're heaven sent to me. We're desperately short-staffed. There isn't a single competent specialist in the maternity ward. Here's my business card. I'll be waiting for your call. After dinner, David's acquaintance went back to his own carriage at the head of the train, while David went to his own. But as he approached his carriage, he heard a frightened scream from the conductor. Comrades! Is there a doctor among you? A woman is in labor. The doctor rushed forward towards the compartment indicated by the conductor. Are you a doctor? Yes. Let me through. You know, something's not right. I've already dealt with childbirth once, but there's clearly something wrong with this girl. What's wrong? Don't yell at me. She seems conscious, but she's unresponsive. She's not answering any questions, not even screaming. Everyone screams during childbirth, I know from experience, but she's not screaming. Maybe we should inform the train conductor? Yes, please do so. Tell them to stop the train at the nearest station and have an ambulance there. The conductor was about to run off, but the doctor stopped her. And also, please. My colleague is in the third carriage. Could you somehow call him? It will be difficult for me to handle this alone. Of course, doctor. We have satellite communication. We'll contact him right away. For nearly 2 hours, the doctors didn't leave the girl's side. David's acquaintance said. We should perform a cesarean section on her. I'm afraid we might lose the mother. Colleague, let's try to handle it ourselves. Besides, we're almost at the station. Passengers anxiously discussed this unusual situation. Some shared examples from their own lives. Finally, a loud cry resounded, and everyone shouted in unison. Hooray! The baby is born. The exhausted doctors were also relieved by the successful resolution of the situation. David asked the happy mother. Do you have any diapers and clothes for the baby at least? She weakened from the experienced excitement but smiled. No, I didn't bring anything with me. They told me in the consultation that I still had 2 weeks. The conductor found a way out of the situation. I have sterile diapers and diapers in my stash. Just in case. Give them to me quickly. The doctor began to clean the baby's body and noticed a small birthmark on the right breast. His eyes darkened immediately. Colleague, what's wrong with you? His familiar doctor handed him a cotton ball soaked in ammonia. Take a breath, it happens. Probably the pressure went up due to stress. Perhaps. David looked at the baby and couldn't believe what was happening to him. And the newborn announced to the world with a loud cry that there was one more person on the planet. He's a good boy, an 8 or 9 on the APGAR score. This high score was given to the newborn by David's colleague, who had no idea what was going on in David's mind at that moment. 30 minutes later, the train stopped at the station. Doctors immediately entered the carriage, and on the platform, David saw an ambulance and decisively took his jacket from the hanger. He would continue his journey later. For now, he would disembark with Jennifer. In such a remote place, it was uncertain if there were good doctors available. Jennifer was already lying on a stretcher, and a nurse carefully wrapped the baby. "Oh, David, I didn't even thank you," Jennifer said. "Well, you just did now," he replied. "You have no idea how grateful I am to you. I'm such a fool. But I thought I couldn't wait. No, I thought that once the baby was born, it would be a long time before I could see my mother. So I decided to go away for a few days." "Yes, your behavior was completely irresponsible." Jennifer weakly smiled. "Every time we meet, you scold me like a child." David thought about what Jennifer had just said, realizing that she had spoken the truth. Well, that's how it turned out. He needed to figure out what was really happening. The birthmark was too noticeable to be a mere coincidence. David tried to recall if his family had ever mentioned Weirton. And the more he thought about it, the more he realized it must be related to his work. On the other hand, Jennifer and her relatives could have come to this town from a completely different place. "Do you plan to get off at this station?" The young mother's voice brought him back to reality. "Yes, I'm afraid they may not provide the necessary assistance here." Jennifer's eyes widened. "So, it's because of me, isn't it?" "Well, you could say it's because of your well-being. After all, I delivered the baby, so I have to make sure you're okay." "Thank you so much. I've already called my family. My husband will arrive in the evening." Oh, how he shouted. He was so scared. He did the right thing. How could he let you go alone? Jennifer smiled. "Well, he didn't let me. He was strongly against it, but you don't listen to anyone." "Well, not always. Sometimes." He laughed, and Jennifer was really interesting and fun. The EMTs grabbed the stretcher. David picked up his suitcase and Jennifer's belongings. There was no maternity hospital in this godforsaken place. There was a small wooden hospital with a children's department. "Excuse me, doctor?" An elderly woman looked at him, reminding him of that same doctor's assistant who had once greeted him, a young doctor, in Weirton. "Yes, I'm a doctor. Who can I talk to?" "Dr. Carter is at the polyclinic, he'll be here soon." "He's doing consultations and working here at the same time?" "Well, since he's the only one we have. We're waiting. If only his son completes his studies and comes back, then we'll have 2 full-fledged doctors." David couldn't help but smirk. 2 full-fledged doctors. It's not like having just one Carter. "I'll go to the laboring woman." "Go ahead. But put on these shoe covers." The woman handed him shoe covers. It was immediately clear that he wasn't the first owner of those shoe covers. David gritted his teeth. But what could he do? Jennifer lay near the slightly open window. There was no one else in the ward. He silently put down the belongings, which no one in the hospital paid any attention to, and rolled the bed with the young mother further away. The girl looked at him shyly. "You take care of me so much. I feel uncomfortable." "Stop it. Right now, you don't need to think about anything except yourself and the baby. Have you decided on a name?" "We haven't even thought about it. We'll decide when my husband arrives." He heard some noise in the corridor and assumed it was Carter, and he was right. The door swung open. "Well, who do we have here?" Carter was exactly as David had imagined him. Of average height, with tousled hair and very lively eyes. "And you must be the city doctor who delivered the baby." "That's correct." "Well, then, Miranda will take some tests now, and we can have a chat." They walked into the corridor. The nurse's station was empty. "She's off somewhere again." We don't even have any patients, it's just someone who refuses to go to the city hospital. But don't worry, we have everything we need here. Carter spoke as he opened the doors to the rooms one by one to find that Miranda. Finally, he spotted her in one of the rooms. Miranda, a girl who was engrossed in reading a book, startled. "What is it, Carter?" He imitated her in such a funny way that David couldn't help but smile. "Where should you be?" "Well, Carter." She hesitated upon realizing that there was another doctor with him, quickly stood up, and headed towards the post. They followed her. "All right, in the 6th room, there's a woman who gave birth with her baby. You take charge and make sure everything is done. And get some blankets and onesies." "No need. I'll go now, I'll buy everything. I think we can transfer them to the city tomorrow." "Well, for the mother, I understand, but it's a bit early for the baby. I'll change and go for an examination. Are you coming with me?" "If it's all right, then yes." Surprisingly, both Jennifer and the baby were doing well. David smiled. "So, when will your husband arrive?" Jennifer replied, "Probably only by evening. He decided to pick up my mother, and that's almost a 100 kilometers detour." David's heart skipped a beat. Perhaps in the evening, he would be able to find out where the baby got that noticeable birthmark from. I wonder if it's from the husband's side or Jennifer's side. He still had no idea how he would go about it. What questions should he ask? He went to the store anyway. Strangely, this village had 2 stores, and he managed to buy almost everything he needed from one of them. When Jennifer saw all the things he brought, she clapped her hands in excitement. "Oh, Donald will bring everything. Please tell me how much I owe you. I have money. I'll repay everything. Later, for now, think about milk and feed your baby." Towards evening, Carter invited David to his office. "You've been on your feet all day. Let's go have a snack." They sat down at the table in the doctor's lounge. David looked around. "It feels like you live here." Carter laughed. "You're almost right. As you understand, I'm the only doctor here. So, I have to keep busy. When my son lived with me, I could at least take care of some things at home, but now he's gone for studies, so I can fully dedicate my time to work." "Sorry for the personal question. And your wife?" "Patricia has been gone for over 10 years. That's how it turned out. I treat people, but couldn't heal my wife." "I apologize." "It's all right." They had just finished dinner when Miranda burst into the office without knocking. There's your patient in labor, she's gone crazy." David and Carter jumped up. They rushed into the room just as Jennifer was attempting to swaddle the baby. She was barely standing, crying, but still wrapping the baby. "Jennifer. What are you doing?" David took the baby from her. Jennifer looked at him with wild eyes. I need to. You see, Donald. My mother. They had an accident." David's world shattered. "How do you know?" "They called me just now." "All right, no panic. You don't even know who was injured and to what extent. We need to find out everything first. Where were you planning to go with the baby? How can you help them? Don't get the baby sick, and you won't go far yourselves." Carter wanted to say something, but then Miranda rushed into the room. "Dr. Carter, they brought 2 people from the accident. They said to take them to the closest hospital." Jennifer sank down slowly. "My mother. Donald." Carter looked at David. "Will you help?" "Of course." He turned to Jennifer. "Listen to me carefully, Jennifer. We will do everything that's necessary, but please, stay in the room with the baby so that we don't have to worry about you at least. Only if we don't need to be distracted, we can help your relatives. Is that clear?" Jennifer nodded. Carter rushed out of the room, saying on the way, "Miranda, come with me." David ran after them. Jennifer's husband wasn't seriously injured. After a quick examination, it became clear that he had a couple of fractures and a few cuts that required stitches. Miranda led David and Donald to the examination room, where David attended to him. He didn't know what was happening with the woman because Carter and the doctor from the ambulance urgently took her somewhere down the corridor. Donald, grimacing in pain, asked, "Tell me, how is my wife? Is she here? She gave birth on the train." "Don't worry, Jennifer is fine. I'll patch you up now, and then you can talk to her." "No, I won't go." David looked at the young man in surprise. "Why not? What do I say to her? I killed your mother? My wife's mother was with me. Who knows what happened with the steering wheel?" Suddenly it became free to rotate, and there was no response from the wheels. "But Jennifer's mother is alive. Why would you prematurely bury her? She was severely injured. I saw it." Miranda entered the room. "David, Carter urgently asks you to come, and I'll finish up here. The operating room sign is at the very end of the corridor." Donald groaned in fear, and David rushed down the corridor. Carter was just setting up an IV for the woman. "David, I don't know what to do. The injuries are mostly on her abdomen. There's massive bleeding, but that's not the worst part. Something is damaged, she keeps losing blood. I've contacted the city hospital. They're sending an ambulance with blood, and a surgeon with a team is accompanying them. But even if they arrive in time, which I highly doubt, we still can't transport her. She will die on the way. What are your thoughts?" "I have no thoughts. 10 to 15 years ago, I would have said we need to operate. No facilities? Yes. But it's a person's life. Now I understand perfectly well that without the necessary equipment, we won't be able to do anything." David started examining the woman. "Dr. Carter. I think we should try." And then he paused. He looked at the woman's face. "Samantha. Jennifer. The baby with the birthmark. No, this couldn't be. It couldn't be. David, are you okay?" Something clicked in David's mind, and everything fell into place. Samantha, Jennifer, the baby. No, it can't be. Dr. Carter, are you familiar with them? And then, something snapped in David's mind, and everything fell into place. He looked at Dr. Carter, startled. "Dr. Carter, are you familiar with them? Are you all right, David?" He looked at Carter with wild eyes. "Is there anyone else we can call for help? Our nurse is already elderly, but she has worked as an operating room nurse for many years. Miranda. Inexperienced, but she thinks well, and there are 2 other nurses who also work here. Call everyone, let's prepare for the surgery." Carter stood for a moment, looking at David. "Are you sure?" "Yes, we need to find the source of the bleeding. Later, perhaps they will arrive from the city." Carter rushed out of the office. His voice could be heard from the corridor. "Miranda, quickly gather everyone together, urgently. We will perform surgery." David stood and looked at Samantha. How many years had passed? Over 20. Samantha's face was pale, but he could still see that the years had hardly changed her. Carter returned, and David went to change clothes. In the corridor, he met a frightened Jennifer. Tell me, how is my mom?" He looked at the girl, then took her hand. "I won't lie to you. It's very bad. A car is coming from the city, but they may simply not make it in time." Donald shuffled towards them in the corridor. "Jennifer." She turned around and rushed into his arms. "Donald, do something. I beg you." He stroked her hair and silently looked at David. "Samantha has type A positive blood. We need blood. I have type A positive." Donald raised his hand, just like in school. "Can you handle it?" "I can handle anything, just save her." Jennifer burst into tears, then looked up at David. "How do you know what blood type my mom has?" Donald also looked at him. And how do you know her name? I didn't say anything, and the documents are still in the car. David sighed. We knew each other once. Jennifer suddenly stopped crying. How long ago was that? A long time ago, over 20 years ago. Jennifer, I will definitely answer all your questions, but later. Donald, come with me. Carter looked a little pale. I spoke with colleagues from the region. They will be in touch and will provide assistance if needed. Excellent. Let's begin. About 5 minutes after the start of the surgery, 2 more girls appeared next to them. Martha had already set up the instruments. David wouldn't have recognized the elderly woman with a focused face as the same almost grandmother who greeted him. An hour and a half later, they stepped away from the table. Carter looked at everyone. Thank you, colleagues. What we have accomplished today is a true miracle. Now we can only wait. David walked out into the corridor. He knew he needed to go and talk to Jennifer. Donald was taken to her room. The conversation would likely not be pleasant, but it was unavoidable. He removed his surgical cap, pushed open the door to the room. Jennifer immediately stood up. Mom? Is Mom alive? I think everything will be fine now. Colleagues from the city will arrive soon. Next to Donald on the bed lay a baby. The man looked at him with affection, hardly blinking. However, when he heard David, he raised himself on his elbow. Thank you, doctor. But I wasn't there alone. Carter is simply amazing. I'm amazed at how much one person can do. In the city, there's a doctor who specializes in stomachs, but he would never take on treating a cold. He sat down on the bed. Jennifer looked at him, unable to take her eyes off. Is that all you wanted to tell us? He nodded, then looked up at Jennifer. Jennifer, what blood type are you? Type A negative? Yes, how do you know? I have the same blood type. She sat down next to him, looking perplexed at her hands, then at her husband. Donald also sat down. Am I understanding correctly that you're going to tell us now that Jennifer is your daughter? Jennifer let out a frightened gasp, and David shrugged. Apparently, yes. Honestly, I didn't know anything either. Various thoughts came to my mind when I accepted your boy. He has the same birthmark as all the men in our family. But I didn't even think in that direction. I was planning to find out through whom this mole came from, through Jennifer or through Donald, and then I saw Samantha. Jennifer stood up. I always knew that my dad was Peter. I don't think you're right. It's just a coincidence. Mom will wake up, and everything will be clarified. Look, see for yourself. Donald carefully turned the child around. It wasn't very convenient with one hand, so Jennifer rushed to help him. Is this it? He pointed to a birthmark of a very unusual shape. David silently unbuttoned his shirt and showed the exact same one, only larger. Jennifer fell onto the bed, exhausted. What is this? Dad loved me. I would have never thought. Loved? She looked up at David. Dad died when I was 15. Silence hung in the room. David stood up. He felt how tired he was. There were simply no more strength left. There was noise in the corridor. He breathed a sigh of relief. Help has arrived. Samantha regained consciousness in the car. It was decided to take her in the morning. Another car was supposed to come for Donald, Jennifer, and the child. David made the decision to go with Samantha. He didn't decide immediately, it was after Jennifer asked. You won't leave Mom now, will you? You saved her. Stay by her side, at least until she's safe. Of course, don't worry, Jennifer. I'll be by her side. In a burst of emotion, he held the girl close to him. Tears welled up in his eyes. Only now did he suddenly realize that he had a daughter, a grandson, but no family. He wasn't needed by anyone. Here they were, all beaten, weak, sick, but together. And he was still alone. Samantha looked around with a hazy gaze, then focused her eyes on him. "It's you?" He barely heard what she said. He wanted to respond, but Samantha closed her eyes again. Weirton greeted them with rain. David thought that, in principle, they had traded one problem for another. As far as he remembered, the medical system here was also lacking. But the car was driving down an unfamiliar street and finally stopped at a beautiful new building. The doors swung open. "Miss Samantha, what's going on?" David watched in surprise as almost the entire staff of the new hospital bustled around Samantha. He approached the driver. "It feels like everyone here knows her." The driver smirked. "How can they not know her if she's the chief physician here?" "The chief physician?" "Yes, that's right. And she fought the administration for this hospital. The building was supposed to become a new haven for officials. But she made it happen. Her daughter got involved, she's a journalist or something on television. So after the reports, the authorities started flocking here. They handed over the building and brought in all the necessary equipment. No one knew right away that Miss Samantha was injured. They would have carried her on their hands. Strange, Jennifer didn't say anything about her mother being the chief physician. Maybe things would have been faster? Miss Samantha never uses her position and forbids everyone else from doing so. She says that when a person becomes a patient, they're just sick, not a boss or a janitor. David felt bewildered and dejected. Life is an interesting thing. It loves to put people in difficult situations. Take, for example, himself many years ago. He committed an ugly, despicable act, but that's why life has done to him. Yes, he should have left alone, as he understood perfectly well that Samantha would become a burden to him. And if he wanted to achieve something. He bitterly chuckled. Achieve? At his age, he returned to where he started. It turns out that he is not needed in this hospital because they will take care of Samantha like a queen. So, who needs him then? The answer was obvious, no one. He was absolutely unnecessary to anyone. He was sure that Jennifer didn't particularly want to see him either. He decided to get a hotel room, get some rest, take a shower, and then say
Goodbye.
to everyone and leave. Where to go? Probably Washington. He needed to sort things out regarding the divorce. He needed to figure out what to do about their housing. David was certain that Gloria wouldn't easily let go of a single square meter of their property. Well, he would fight, especially now that he had someone to fight for. The next day, he learned that Jennifer would be discharged after lunch. Donald called him. "David, I don't know how things will work out between you and Jennifer, but our son was born thanks to you. So if you want, come to the local maternity hospital at 2 o'clock. "Thank you, Donald. I will definitely be there. Can you tell me where I can find a decent baby store in town?" "In the shopping center on Green Street." "I'll be there, I'll definitely be there." Donald said, "And one more thing, Jennifer is kind, and fair. Don't think she will hate you." "Thank you, Donald. Jennifer is very lucky to have you." He got dressed, called a taxi, and hurried to the baby store. He thought for a long time about what to buy, and finally decided on a stroller. He had no idea if they already had one or not, but he decided it would be good to have two, just in case. Jennifer greeted him with a smile. "Hello, I didn't know you would come." "How could I not come?" David handed flowers to Jennifer and peeked into the crib. "Can I hold him, help out?" Donald said his arm is tired. Of course. He had held countless little children in his arms, thousands, maybe even more. But now, as he held this tiny living bundle in his arms, he felt like crying. He managed to hold back the tears, though, at least for a short while. "We talked with my husband and decided to name our son David. If it weren't for you, I couldn't hold back the tears anymore, perhaps it's old age." He escorted the happy parents home and headed to the hospital to see Samantha. He didn't know what he would say, but he understood that things couldn't go on as they were before. Samantha would be completely right to send him away and forbid Jennifer from having any contact with him. Well, in that case, he would leave, but he would still help his grandson and daughter. The girl who escorted him to the ward suddenly stopped. It's you who saved her, right? No. We all did it together. Everyone who works at the hospital in that town. Samantha immediately turned her head, her eyes widened. David closed the door to the ward, approached, and sat on a chair. Hello, Samantha. Hello, David. So you weren't just a dream. You're the doctor from the capital who saved me. I suppose I should thank you? No need. It's the least I could do for you. Samantha, why didn't you tell me? Tell you what? I don't understand. You didn't tell me about Jennifer. So you figured it out. Well, it wasn't difficult, considering that I delivered the baby and immediately noticed the birthmark on the child. So that's it. I wanted to tell you, I thought about it for a long time, unsure if you needed that information. But then I decided you had the right to know. I went to Washington. Finding you wasn't difficult. But on that day, you had a wedding. I saw you, stood for a while, and left, deciding to forget you forever. Peter was waiting for me here. I told him everything, and he said only one thing, too bad I didn't kill you or finish you off back then. David smirked. It truly is a shame. What now? Nothing. Nothing has changed. Jennifer considers Peter her father. Let it be that way. Jennifer knows everything. I told her. Samantha closed her eyes. Why? You'll leave for your Washington again. Why dig all this up now? David stood up and walked to the window. And why did you assume I'd leave? There's nothing holding me there anymore. I'm getting divorced, and I don't have a job there anymore. I used to work at my father-in-law's clinic, so one thing leads to another. I should have stayed back then. But maybe it's not too late now? She looked at him attentively. Are you joking? No, no jokes. During these few days that I've been here, I've come to understand a lot. Back then, I left everything behind, flew off in pursuit of a better life, leaving you alone. And what's the result? Now I have nothing again, no status, no respect, no family. You stayed, and now anyone in this town utters your name with some reverence. You have a daughter, and now a grandchild too. You have it all. I don't envy you. I mean that everything is right. You deserve all of it. And I received what I deserved. Samantha remained silent. He stood there for a while, then headed towards the door. Okay, forgive me. Of course, you're right. You don't want me to bother you, and you're absolutely right. Fine then, I didn't help, didn't raise her, and suddenly I have an adult daughter. That would be too easy. I'll leave tomorrow. I'm sorry. He reached for the doorknob and heard. I have a position in the hospital as the head of the maternity ward. The current head has been itching for a well-deserved retirement for a year now, and I have no one to replace him. He froze, then turned around. Samantha, are you sure you won't regret your offer? She weakly smiled. Of course, I will regret it. David enthusiastically started his work. Initially, while he sorted out all the property division issues, he was given a small apartment near the hospital. The rent for it was minimal. Although the apartment was tiny, it was quite decent inside. On the very first day, he contacted his acquaintance, a lawyer in Washington, and told him to initiate the divorce process. Has your wife ever worked? No. I understand where you're heading. We'll divide everything fairly. But you should offer her to buy out my share because I have no intention of returning. I see. So, where does the best doctor reside now? David laughed. Where she and Daddy Dearest constantly sent me. In the department, everyone looked at him with some unhealthy curiosity. He knew perfectly well why. Not only was he not a local, hailing from the capital, but it turned out he was acquainted with their chief physician. And that was already interesting, considering their nearly identical ages. David visited Samantha every day under the pretext of discussing work matters. They both knew that work had nothing to do with it, but they made a conscious effort to pretend otherwise. After each shift, David would also stop by to see Jennifer. She genuinely delighted in his presence, while Donald smiled contently and said that as soon as his hand healed, he would take David fishing. Everything was going smoothly, but there was still a sense of unfinished business in the air. When Samantha would be discharged, everything would fall into place. But he didn't think they would be able to continue communicating like this. With each passing day, he realized one thing more clearly: all those years could be considered lost, and only the time spent with Samantha was vivid and somehow real. A month passed, and Samantha finally walked out of the hospital on her own 2 feet, taking a deep breath. "Oh my God, it feels so good. I never understood why patients dislike being in the hospital. Now I understand." David stood slightly to the side. He didn't want to intrude. Jennifer hugged her mother and led her towards the car. He sighed. What a joy it is to have someone to hug like that. David started walking towards the hospital, but then he heard, "Dad, aren't you coming with us?" He froze. To hear those words. Slowly, he turned around. No, there was no mistake. Besides them, there were almost no other people on the street. Jennifer looked at him and smiled. "Let's go. I've set the table. Mom is watching over David, so we need to hurry, or our son will throw a tantrum." "I am." He glanced at Samantha. If she was unhappy, he would decline. He didn't want to cause her any unpleasant moments. But Samantha calmly looked at him, even with a hint of tenderness. "Of course, I'm coming. I just thought you wanted to be with your family." He rushed towards them. "David?" The man even stumbled. That annoying, squeaky voice belonged to only one person. "Gloria? So, you haven't forgotten your wife after all?" She slammed shut the door of the expensive car and started walking towards them. "David, enough with the madness. We all got a bit carried away, both Dad and you. But admit it, you were the one who was wrong. Dad is ready to take you back if you apologize for your words." He saw the change in Samantha's face. She coughed. "Well, we won't disturb you then." Samantha headed towards the car. Jennifer hesitated for a moment and followed her mother. David turned to Gloria. "Why did you come?" "I don't understand, we've already settled everything, haven't we? I fulfilled your wish and returned to where you think I belong." "David, enough already. Are you really willing to sacrifice a normal life for all of this?" Gloria made a vague gesture with her hand, and suddenly David calmed down. He glanced at Donald's car, which wasn't hidden from Gloria's view. "I don't get it. Have you found yourself a local girl already?" She burst into laughter. "Well, you surprised me. I thought you were incapable of anything. And here you are, still capable of seducing someone. So, you're willing to give up everything for some village woman?" He approached Gloria closely. "You arrived just in time. No, really. If I hadn't looked at you again, at your behavior, I wouldn't have realized how worthless my life has been. Tell me, Gloria, what do you live for? You don't bring any good to anyone. You won't leave any mark behind. You're that kind of person, Gloria, just a parasite." The woman even choked with indignation. "Who do you think you are? Even my dad won't let you work here." David laughed. "Don't burst with anger, please." He almost ran down the sidewalk. He knew exactly what he needed to do. Somewhere nearby, he saw a small shop, just the one he needed right now. Samantha was sitting at the table, playing with her food. "Mom, you're not eating anything." "I don't feel like it, my dear." She really didn't feel like eating. The only thing she wanted right now was to bury herself in a pillow and cry. How? How did she manage to fall in love with someone who treated her this way? Her brain tried to tell her that she probably never stopped loving him, but Samantha didn't want to listen to those thoughts. Donald stood up. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. Just watch, he won't go with her. I don't know him that well, but he seemed like a decent guy to me. Samantha smirked. Donald, what are you getting at? Nothing. Do you think, Ms. Samantha, that we don't see anything, that we don't understand anything? Why did you leave them there? We could have waited. Now he thinks that we all abandoned him and that he's not needed by anyone here. Jennifer looked at her mother. She thought the same, but she didn't speak up. Samantha sighed. The most important thing is whether he needs us. And only he can decide that. Neither his wife nor us can help him with that. She stood up. I'll go lie down, I'm feeling tired. Samantha didn't make it to the room. Someone rang the doorbell. Who could that be? Donald, could it be for you? Donald shrugged. Who could come here? They lived in another city, and all their friends were there. He opened the door and smiled widely. I knew you'd come. Where's Samantha? She's in the room. David was almost hidden behind a huge bouquet of roses. He quickly took off his jacket and headed towards the room. Donald followed him. Samantha looked at him in surprise. He handed her the flowers. Taken by surprise, she took the bouquet. Then he knelt down and presented Samantha with a small box containing a ring. Samantha, I should have done this many years ago, but I was a coward. I acted like a jerk, not like a man. I'm asking, if you can, please forgive me. If you can't, I'm ready to accept your reproaches for the rest of my life, but I'm begging you, marry me. I haven't actually divorced yet, but it's just a matter of time. I can't live without you. I've been thinking that only the time we spent together had any meaning at all. Samantha looked at David, both perplexed and surprised. She knew that he felt something for her, but to propose so directly, without any hesitation. Well, Mom, enough already, isn't it? We can see that you love him. Jennifer couldn't hold back. And as if to confirm his words, little David, whom Donald was holding, let out a loud coo, sounding like a distinct yes. They all laughed. David held out the longest but joined in the laughter a minute later. Samantha, wiping away tears that had welled up, whether from laughter or something else, said, Let's wash the dishes one by one. David smirked. I'm ready to take on that responsibility completely. Samantha immediately replied. Just remember, no one forced you to say that. He laughed and finally managed to embrace Samantha. He could feel her heart pounding, or perhaps it was his own heart pounding. But what difference did it make? They were beating in unison anyway.